So Gamesir have flipped everybody's lives or everybody's gaming lives upside down, and we're here to talk about it and hopefully help a few of you out as well. So, whole new firmware update for the Gamesir G7 HE and SE. I think a few other controllers as well, maybe the Collides, but we're mainly focusing on the G7 HE and SE today. Not only that, whole new application as well, so we're going to be going through this. I did very briefly cover this in a previous video, but that was before I even got a chance to play with the controller and actually test out what this update brings. So we've got the new Nexus app open up here. We're going to very quickly run through what's new, what's changed. Basically, the new Nexus app is pretty much the same as the Gamesir Connect app, the app that you'd use for the Tarantula Pro and the Cyclone 2, as well as the Supernova or the Nova Pro, whatever you want to call it. The Gamesir Nexus app was very basic, very limited in what you could actually do. The new Nexus app brings a little bit more. Now, with these being officially licensed Xbox controllers, there are still a few limitations. We're going to be testing this out on PC. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to get my controller set up how I normally have it. And then I'm going to jump in a game, give it a test out and see what's different, see how it feels. So left trigger and right trigger, no dead zones, adaptive mode on. Actually, that's going to bring up the anti-dead zone here. That's how I like to have mine. And then for the right trigger, the same as well. So bring that up to 91. So the triggers are nice and fast. Let's take a look at the sticks, left stick, right stick, both on raw mode, both on the default curve adjustment, advanced mapping. We don't change anything in there, leave that as default, but both on raw, both on default, 0 dead zones on both of these. Now, as you can see, a few people have mentioned this. You can see that the stick is actually twitching a little bit, which is kind of indicating we've got a bit of stick drift. And a lot of people have mentioned that they now have stick drift. This is the very latest update. So there was an update, and then there's been a new one since. So if you haven't updated your controller since, it should now be on version 6.5.4. So make sure you are on that one. But even on this version, we are looking at a little bit of stick drift. I'm not too worried about that. That's very small. The right stick, still, yes, we are also looking at a little bit of stick drift there as well. Sticks seem very sensitive, but that can be sometimes more a good thing than a bad thing. That amount of stick drift is not a concern to me. The amount of stick drift that would be a concern is if it was something like that, to the point where it's actually like doing things in the menus. That would be more of a concern to me. But this little bit in the center really doesn't concern me, because also with these being Hall effect sticks, it's not going to get any worse. So if you've got potentiometer sticks with this amount of stick drift, eventually over time, could be a month, could be 6 months, it will get worse. With these, what you have right now will just be what you have forever until Gamesir update the controllers again. So that's fine. I don't think that's going to be a concern, but again, we'll get into game button mapping. So we've got a bit of extra button mapping here. On PC, we can map these to keyboard inputs as well, but obviously I don't think that is available on Xbox. So we've just got that mapped up the same as we normally would. So that's about it, really. I have vibration disabled. There's not really much more to mention. I'm going to put this thing on 1000 Hertz just to really get a good feel of how that's performing. If you are using this thing on Xbox, obviously 250 Hertz is all you're going to be able to use it on. And just to clear up as well, I've had a lot of questions about whether 1000 Hertz is working on Xbox or not. I just want to make something very clear in case you're not aware already. No, 1000 Hertz is not possible on Xbox, and it will not become possible. That's not going to change. The maximum you can use on Xbox is 250 Hertz. And even with the Gamesir G7 Pro, that's also going to be the case. This is a 1000 Hertz controller, but only on PC. Any 1000 Hertz polling rate controller is only compatible on PC. If you're using it on Xbox, if it's a licensed Xbox controller, the maximum is 250 Hertz, nothing more. That's not going to change. Now, there was a previous version of software for the Gamesir G7 SE that allowed you to use the 1000 Hertz polling rate on Xbox. It did lower the input latency. Microsoft didn't like it, so Gamesir had to make it so that that was no longer possible. Even if you set it to 1000 Hz on PC, then plug it into your Xbox, it will only have a report rate of 250 Hz. Whether you think differently or not, that's just the way it is. So please, people, stop trying to tell me that 1000 Hz works on Xbox when it doesn't. If you want to downgrade your firmware to make the 1000 Hz work again, or kind of work, I won't be supporting that, and I won't be providing any guides or information on how to do so, simply because these products should be used how Gamesir intends them to be used. You should always be on the very latest version of software. You shouldn't be downgrading. I mean, there are some applications where it's possible. So if, a manufacturer releases an update where it makes something not work properly, like actually not work properly, then sure, downgrading firmware, just to carry on using a product is definitely justified. But as far as we're aware, this firmware, everything works as intended, so there should be no reason to downgrade. And again, it doesn't matter PlayStation, Xbox, it doesn't matter what controller, Nacon, Scuff, it doesn't matter what controller you're using, the maximum is going to be 250 Hz. And in fact, with other controller manufacturers such as Scuff and Xbox, their controllers are actually only 125 Hz, so you are getting a faster response time with these controllers than you are official Xbox Ones anyway. Anyway, now we've got that out of the way, we're going to jump in game, and yeah, let's have a look. Let's see what it's like. Alright, so I am going to be just jumping into a free-for-all here in a private match with some bots, just to kind of get a feel for things as a bit of a warm-up, and we're going to see what the controller feels like. Now, normally I would have a taller stick on the right-hand side. I have my own custom thumbsticks for the Gamesir controllers, but I'm not using them on this. I'm just going to use the standard thumbsticks just to get a good idea, because that's what most people are going to be using on this thing. So it should give me a really good idea of kind of how the controllers feel for you. If you want me to let you in on what thumbsticks I use for a little bit of extra control, then I can send you a link to that. It's just basically some very cheap joystick caps from AliExpress. Okay, so right off the bat, the controller is feeling very responsive. The joysticks are very responsive. Now I'm going to let go of the thumbstick here, and we do have some stick drift, some noticeable stick drift. Again, this is not a concern to me. If you're getting this, then you shouldn't be worried. That's perfectly normal. In fact, it was very odd that we were able to use the controllers with absolutely zero stick drift before. It was, a bit of a mystery. And clearly Gamesir have only done this to improve things. So, yes, very, very tiny amount of stick drift here. That is the most you're going to get. That is literally the most you're going to get. That is nowhere near too much. That's perfectly acceptable, especially since, these are Hall effect and they're not going to get any worse. The sticks do feel very, very twitchy, very sensitive, but not in a kind of uncontrollable way. It kind of feels nice. I actually kind of like it. They feel very snappy. And now the thing about Hall effect sticks that you've got to bear in mind is that generally as a rule, they are not as kind of precise. They're a little bit floaty, a little bit sluggish. And it's the reason why they don't currently use it in any pro competitions like the CDL. So they still use scuff controllers with potentiometer sticks. Most professional players will use potentiometers still. Now TMR have kind of been getting there, but Hall effects, has always kind of left you at a little bit of a disadvantage. But I think what Gamesir are trying to do here is just kind of take Hall effect to the next level, because they recognize that Hall effect does have that disadvantage. And these are some really good modules. They have been for a very long time. So since the release, these Hall effect sticks have been amongst the best. These feel really good. I think the change is very welcomed. I like these. I like these a lot. I'm not going to lie. And you've got to bear in mind as well that Gamesir's kind of target audience isn't necessarily really the average player. Although they want, the average player, the average casual player, to be purchasing their products and using their products. They definitely want that. It's kind of not their primary target. Gamesir have always been striving to make the best of the best. And, their focus has definitely been in the right place as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, these sticks feel really good. Whatever they've done to these things, it's very, very positive change. These feel really, really good. Yeah, I really do like these. But games are obviously trying to make the best product possible for, you know, very competitive players, such as, people like myself. So this controller and the changes that they've recently made are definitely, for people like me. So the very casual, very occasional player may kind of struggle to get to grips with it, but trust me, just spend some time with it. Just keep using it. Obviously, I get used to small changes like this very, very quickly, simply because I play so much, as it's kind of my career in a way at the moment. But for someone who maybe only plays on the weekend, a couple times a week, couple of hours on a particular day, it's going to take you a lot longer than it would me to get used to some changes like this. But just stick at it. Trust me, because it's definitely beneficial. Now, there was a little bit of a bug in the first version that I noticed. So when I tried enabling the hair triggers in the software, after a few seconds, they would just automatically disable. Some other people have also reported the hair triggers turning themselves on when they're supposed to be off, when they need them to be off. So there was definitely a bug in the last version. It doesn't seem to be here in this version now. It's working perfectly fine. I can enable the hair triggers and they stay enabled. They're not turning themselves off or on. And I assume it should be the same for the other way around as well. So that issue's definitely been resolved. And as far as I'm concerned, here, just with this few minutes of gameplay, I'm not noticing anything, a problem here at all. I think the changes are definitely positive. So everything is good. Get updated to the latest version. I think it's a very positive change. The sticks feel great. The triggers are very fast. Again, if you're experiencing any issues still with your controller, even on the very latest version of the firmware, then head to Gamesir's Discord server. I'll link that down below. You can join that. And there's lots of really, really helpful members in there, including myself. My Discord server will also be linked below if you want to come along and jump in that one. And if you don't have a Gamesir controller yet and want to pick one up, there's a link in the description that'll take you right to their website, where you can pick up a G7 SE or HE, or you can even pre-order your very own Gamesir G7 Pro. And by using that link, it doesn't cost you any extra, but I do earn a very, very small amount of commission per sale. And it greatly helps out supporting me and running the YouTube channels and providing the content that I do. So big thanks if you do make a purchase through that link. That's it from me today. We'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.